Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and it wouldn't be the fair without the craft beer tent.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Scott Carlson joins me in the Iowa Podcast studio. And now, how old? In my mind, the craft beer tent's still new, but it's not new by this point. It's actually new. Quite an old entity.
It's lucky 13.
Lucky 13 years?
Right.
That is wild and crazy.
It's been a great run.
You know? Yeah. So now let's take people back a little bit. It originally wasn't where it is now. It used to be on top of the hill, I think.
No, it used to be.
Where was it? No, it was hidden.
It was hidden, you know, by Diamond Jacks, now JRs, right? Mm-hmm. And we didn't know it existed, right? When the fair called us to ask if we had an interest in doing, you know, craft beer at the Iowa Craft Beer at the Iowa State Fair, which we were trying to do for quite a few years prior to that, we said absolutely, and they said to meet by the dairy barn, and we'll show you the space we're thinking. And so I remember going to the dairy barn and somebody showing me the space, and I kept looking towards the cattle barn going, where are you talking about? And they said, well, turn around. And I go, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, tent like 20 by 20, 40 by 40. I mean, just in my head, and they said that hoop tent, that hoop structure. And I didn't even, even when I'm looking at it, broad daylight,
you're
I'm
like, where?
What? I go, I never knew that was even there. And they said, that's the problem. Nobody knows it's there. We think you can probably fill it and try to get some traffic to come into that space.
Which you did, by the way.
Which we did.
Yeah. Like it was I don't even want to call it a best kept secret because it was definitely not kept secret, but it was like this. It was almost the fair's speakeasy.
I would say you're correct. We had so many people who would text us and say, they told me where to go and we can't find you. And I'm like, just walk through the food vendors. You're gonna find us, right? Or just go behind the giant, because somebody would say we're behind a giant slide, right? But they would go down that kind of little pathway and see the trash cans, right? Yeah, and they go, I don't see any tent, right? Then they stop and turn around and go the other direction, right? I'm like, no, just keep going, take a left, you'll see us. So we were kind of this hidden kind of secret that became really popular for the Iowa State Fair. And we were almost, if you looked at a bullseye, dead center of the fairgrounds.
Oh, that's a good point. Right? I didn't think about that.
So that was kind of exciting for us. But yeah, so long story short, the fair really wanted to move traffic, on the fairgrounds, and suggested that corner, that kind of corner, by the horse barns, and kind of gave us the opportunity to kind of grow our space, which we needed to grow.
It was tight.
It was tight and no air. Right, and so because we were just so tight, we had no real airflow, no breeze. We were so tucked in there, and then we were by the horse barns, really by the horse barns. And so if the horses were there, great. If not, then there was flies kind of came our direction, looking for something else to play with, right? And
that's funny.
it was great. I mean, it was all just part of being at the fair. But when we got to move to where we were at, we got to build the structure taller, 17 feet, high in the ground, high in the air. And then we also got to put the wings on it to give it more shade, right? And then we also have all that cross breeze, right? So now we just have this natural cross air. And it's so tall that when you're in there, you almost don't feel like you're under anything, except you have shade.
That's true.
Right.
They almost used you to activate a whole new area of the fair.
Absolutely.
Because that area, Gwen was in here with What You Smoking.
Right.
And that area was essentially a dead zone there for the longest time. They basically used the Iowa Craft Beer Tent to spread out people in the fair.
They did. That area was just getting too busy. And it was really too busy we didn't even know it. I mean, we appreciated how busy we were, but we didn't realize how busy we were, right? We after we moved, right? Everybody tells you that constructive criticism after you move, after you change, right? And so people would say to us, "Oh, we're so glad you had the space. We used to walk by and you were so busy, we just didn't come in." And we're like, "What? We never knew, right? We never knew people didn't come in because we were so busy."
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So now they have the opportunity, if they want to be on the grass, if they want to be in the street, if they want to be in the sidewalk, if they want to be under the tent, they have now opportunity to kind of spread around. And we have food vendors, the top, I think you probably just talked about, the top 3 new foods in a row are right outside the craft beer tent.
All of them?
All of them. All three.
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, right. Okay. So they got What You Smoking, and then the next two next to them, I think, are all the 1, 2, and 3. You know, so that whole area is going to kind of blow up, you know, this year because people are going to want to come to the, you know, to try the new foods and hopefully wash it down with an Iowa craft beer.
There you go.
Or seltzer, or wine slushy, or whatever else they would decide, or a root beer, you know, whatever they want.
Yeah, that's a good point because you do have non-alcoholic stuff too.
We do. Because
not everyone's a drinker.
We do. You know, that's becoming more popular. So we've had more and more people ask us for NA something. So this year
it's huge, right? It's a huge deal.
It's huge, and I think it's good, right? People are starting to have different choices and different ways to, you know, consume their beverage, and so. We asked Court Avenue Brewing Company to make us, they make hard seltzers for us during the fair. So we asked them, can you make us an NA seltzer? So they're going to come up with something for the fair that'll be non-alcoholic, but like an adult seltzer, right?
That's
so
a good
something
idea.
that's kind of maybe, they talked about basil and blueberries or something, you know, something that's just a nice, refreshing drink that somebody can have that doesn't want to drink alcohol. So, and we have root beer, and we normally have an NA beer on site. Sometimes they're in cans, so I always tell people just ask because you might not see it on a sign. It's normally in a cooler, you know, but we have them available for anybody.
Oh, that's good to know. One of the things, because like I said, Gwen was just in here, and this is one of the things that's kind of the culture of the Iowa Craft Beer Tent.
Right.
And that is the whole, for those that don't know, because it's not, you know, you have to be one of the few and the proud to win this prize. But for those that don't know, what's up with the siren? There's a siren that goes off.
Right.
And I know what it is, you know, but most people are like, is this just the craft beer people being funny, or is there a reason for this? So what's up with the siren?
So it's called I Tapped It. It's an I Tapped It the Iowa State Fair shirt, right? And so what we found, we have 137 different taps of Iowa craft beer, right? And everyone's different. Crazy. So you can't like, it's not like you can get, you know, a beer that's next to another beer that are all the same, right? Yeah. So if one tap goes, we just go to the tap to the right or left. Well, because everyone's different, we've got to pull the keg, get inside the truck. It's normally buried, right? So it's behind other kegs. Retap, get the keg kind of in place, change them all out, flush the line out. That takes, you know, maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Right?
Oh,
yeah,
wow, I didn't know that.
To get that done, which isn't a long time.
And that's if you're moving fast.
That's if we're moving fast, and we know what we're doing. But if you're waiting for that beer, that's a really long time. So what we decided to do is make it a prize. So if the beer pops or, you know, is emptied when you get your beer, we come over with a bullhorn. We ask you what your name is. We introduce you to the beer tent. We ask the beer tent to give you a cheers. And we also give you a T-shirt that says, I tapped at the Iowa State Fair, which is coveted. Just so you know, I have one because I've tapped one keg at the Iowa State Fair.
Oh, did you?
Right, just by chance when I was
cheated.
done. I know, I didn't cheat. I just went and got a beer, and there I go. And so that's the only way you get them. And so by the time that process is done, you have a beer in front of you. Right. And so you don't think it took any time at all. And you're all kind of bewildered, right? People just look at us like deer in headlights if they never had it happen before. Like, what just occurred? Because we do have a siren, a bullhorn, and I mean, everything's just happening. And then all of a sudden you get your T-shirt, we hand you your fresh beer, and we say, hey, congratulations, and send you on your way. And everybody cheers for you. Right. Yeah. So it just turned that kind of what could be frustrating into a really exciting time. And we have a blast doing it. It's just fun. And we actually have people, we've had charities say, hey, can we do something for one of our charity people on an auction? We're like, do you want to run the bullhorn for half an hour? Oh, that'd be great.
Really?
Right, yeah, because people will come and do that because it's a fun thing they can do. And so we'll give them the bullhorn. They give out T-shirts, you know, or something like that.
This is what airlines need to do when they delay your flight. They need to give out free T-shirts. That'll fix it.
And run a bullhorn. And run a bullhorn.
And then everybody will be fine with it.
Right.
And then give them a beer.
Right. So it's been fun, right? And people ask us all the time, and we've actually seen people, which is crazy, win the T-shirt and then sell it to somebody for $100.
What?
Right, because somebody's like, I've been waiting all day or trying to get a beer all day. And we're like, once it's their T-shirt, it's theirs, right?
People are buying these things for, there's like an aftermarket for iTapped.
There's a black market for the iTapped T-shirt. So, we just laugh, right? We're just going, that's whatever. It's your T-shirt.
I mean, okay, hold on. If people are willing to pay like $100 for a T-shirt, do they have like sneaky? Are there people trying to watch how many times a tap is pulled and time it out?
We will have
and try to slide in at just the right time.
Entire tables drink the same beer.
No,
right?
Just to get a T-shirt.
Just to get one T-shirt.
What?
Right. So they'll also this whole table of 8 or 9 people will be drinking the same beer, and I'll just start. What's going on? Oh, we're gonna get a T-shirt, and then inevitably somebody walks up with a little 5-ounce sample cup and gets a beer and pops the keg, and that whole table loses it. right? Because they're like, oh, I'm in here 3 hours, right? We've been trying to get this, keg to tap, and so we're like, sorry, next one. So it's just like being in Vegas, right? You spin to win, right? You see what happens.
Oh my word! Have you ever had one person try to brave it on their own?
Oh, I'm sure we have, but hopefully not, right? So that's a big task, if they're gonna go down by themselves. But people do have certain beers, like we'll have people that come to the fair and they have beers they like, right? You probably have beers you like, so they will come and just drink that beer hoping to tap that keg, right? So they'll come 2 or 3 or 4 times throughout the fair and they'll drink the same beer hoping to get that keg to tap. And people ask all the time, which one's light? I'm like, there's 137. We don't know. Mm-hmm. We're pulling and popping kegs all the time.
Because it's a multiple breweries participating, right? It's not one, like the Iowa Craft Beer Tent isn't one organization making
137 different beers on tap.
It's not one organization making 137 different beers. It's a bunch of Iowa breweries coming together to kind of showcase their beer.
We do. We invite every brewery in the state to come to the Iowa, and we don't ask for any discounts. We do tell them that if you're a certain price, we have like a high end line that we'll put over on the high end side. But we don't ask for a discount. We just say, hey, if we'll buy your beer at market price. We realize all these breweries need to make a living in there, and we're trying to expose them to more beer. And we're just at the Iowa State Fair, so we just call them all and say, hey, we'd love to have you come. Here's the distributors that are close to us. They can help work with you. If you can get your beer to them, they'll get the beer to us.
Oh,
right?
Interesting. Right? Okay, so you kind of don't handle it, but you basically help them with the distribution aspect too.
Right. Getting on the fairgrounds is hard, right? So
it is.
So if they can go through one of the distributors, then they have a lot easier time. And actually, I think you have to really go. Well, you have to go through a distributor anyways, unless you can self-distribute. Like Confluence is allowed to self-distribute, but most breweries can't. So they have to go through some distributor. And so we always say, here's the ones that come to the fair every day: Dahl, Iowa Beverage, and Confluence, right? We'll talk about those different distributors and say, hey, these are the ones that come every day. So if you can work with them, they'll grab your beer and they'll bring it to us, and that kind of stuff.
Is it kind of? I asked Gwen this too, but the appeal of the Iowa State Fair, is it a big moneymaker for these breweries? Is it more marketing?
I would say
is it both?
I would say both. It depends on who you are, right? If you're a big brewery like Toppling Goliath or Exile or Confluence, when I say bigger, right? Bigger for the state of Iowa. I think they look at it as more as marketing, right? But they still sell a lot of beer, right? But if you're a small brewery doing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 barrels at a time,
that's big.
If we sell 4 or 5 or 6 of your barrels of your beer, that's a big day. That's a big week, right, for them, right? And they also they get exposure and volume, for their size. And then if you take 137 different taps of Iowa beer, it moves just Iowa beer, right? It's a good mover for Iowa beer. And what we learned, which is I think an interesting thing, and again, I know you're a craft beer guy, people get nervous walking into breweries. I didn't know this until I got to the Iowa State Fair.
What?
So if you've never had a craft beer, it takes a lot to walk into Court Avenue Brewing Company, because if you've been drinking Busch Light your whole life, sometimes you just feel like
it's a lot. Sure, there's so many different flavors.
Right, you don't know what to ask, right? So you just avoid it, right? You just say, I'm going to go somewhere else. And so what we found out early on, not as much anymore because craft beer's grown a lot in 13 years, but we would see people on the outside of the tent, especially earlier when we weren't so crazy. We'd see people walk by and kind of look in and then disappear and then come back. And the only reason I remember this, there was a lady that was in a wheelchair with her husband. And if you remember, we used to be on wood chips, so not the easiest to navigate. And so we saw her once, we saw her twice, and then all of a sudden they came in, and I kind of walked up to him and I said, hey, what can I do for you? She was like, I'm from small town Iowa. I can't remember what she said. She goes, I've never had a craft beer, and I think I want to try it.
Interesting.
Right? And so I said, well, absolutely. And so I walked around, and we have tape, electrical tape. Yellow is for lighter beers, green is for hoppy, brown is for malty. Black is for stout, red is for sours, right? So I kind of...
Sorry, can you say that? I said I didn't know that, and then you were describing... Can you just go through that color code again?
We have yellow is for lighter beers, right? So like, wheat beers and things like that. Hefeweizens, Belgian whites. And then we have green for hoppy. We have brown for malty, like a Pointer Brown or a amber beer. And then we have black for stouts or porters. And then we have red for sours. And so I kind of explained to her those. So you might want to try the yellows. And I said, what do you like? She's like, I like Busch Light. So I got her a Mexican lager at that time. And she loved it. Right?
Sure,
and then all of a sudden she told me what town she was from. Then I could tell her what brewery was close to her town. So I said, hey, when you go to your next town, ask for, and then she ended up trying a Belgian white. She ended up trying a Hefeweizen, and she liked those too. I said, when you go, and she wrote them down, I said, when you walk in, just say, hey, I'd like a Mexican lager or something like a Corona, or I'd like a Hefeweizen, or I'd like something like a Belgian white. And they'll have something as like that. And I said, and so all of a sudden she goes, you know what? I'm going to go try my brewer. I've driven by it like 10 times, that was in a smaller town, that was the next town over. And so we realized we're not only getting craft beer for people that want to go to the Iowa State Fair that like craft beer, we're growing the pie, right?
That's true.
We're bringing more members. And so if you think of beer festivals, they don't really grow the pie. They certainly are exciting. They get some coverage, they get news, but most people, if you just spend $60 or $50 or $40 or $100 for a ticket to go to a beer fest, you already like craft beer. The Iowa State Fair, there's no cost to come by the craft beer tent, right? And we do little 5-ounce samples. So we always tell people, if you've never had it, do the package of 3 5-ounce samples instead of just, and just try.
Yeah, because you don't have to just get a full beer. You can get several tinier pours.
Correct.
So they're just a little bit bigger than a shot glass, right?
Right. So you can do a 16-ounce beer, or you can do 3 5-ounce samples. You lose 1 ounce. There's no real price difference, but you can try 3 beers. And if you don't love it, I think all of us can drink 5 ounces.
Are there rules that the Iowa Craft Beer Tent has? I'm assuming one of the rules is you have to be made in Iowa. Like how strict do you follow those rules?
We do. So we do everything pretty much in the tent is Iowa made. We have 1 keg of Busch Light or 1 tap of Busch Light, not because we're trying to satisfy the Busch Light drinker, but we now are moved, right? We're now kind of in that corner, the fairgrounds. There are no other beer stands really around us. So we don't want to lose 3 people because 1 person doesn't like craft beer, right? And then if the craft beer drinkers are with you, right, and you happen to be the 1 person drinking Busch Light and you enjoy the atmosphere, our hope is somewhere throughout the day, maybe you will try like a Mexican lager or a Pilsner or a corn ale, right? Something that's lighter with your buddies, right?
Yeah, you don't want
to
turn into this.
You, right? We may convert you at that time, but we don't want to lose you to begin with.
And you don't want the image of the snob craft brew thing where if you don't like a craft brew, you're not welcome over here.
Right.
Because like you said, that breaks up big groups and people are like, well, now fine, I'll go get my Busch Light or my Budweiser or whatever, and then I'll meet you back at the.
Right.
That's kind of that's a nuisance. So you're trying to get away from that.
And so we've actually what we've seen now is we've seen that transition, right? We'll see somebody come in and get a Busch Light. And then eventually, they'll try something else, and sometimes we convert them, right?
Do you have because obviously, how many breweries are going to be represented this year?
That's a great question. There's 120 or 128, I think, breweries now in the state of Iowa, and I bet we'll have 80 of them.
Whoa!
Right. So we'll have a good chunk. Again, we invite them all, and what we don't want, because some of the new breweries are
80. 80.
Yeah, 80.
That's
so sometimes
insane.
we'll call, and breweries are so nice, so. They'll call us and they'll say, we really want to come, but we're a single barrel system, which means they make 2 kegs at a time. And we always say, hey, don't send us something that means you can't serve beer at your place.
Right. That's a good point.
Right, because I go, yes, we want to buy your keg at whatever price you're going to sell it to us, but you can sell it for a lot more over your bar top at $6 or $7 or $8 a pint than we're going to pay for you, in a keg. And so we always tell them, we want you. And if you send us 1 keg, we'll put it on, right? We want everybody to be there, right? So we'll have a couple of rotating taps where it might be 2 kegs, 1 keg, 1 keg, 1 keg, 1 keg, 2 keg. We just rotate it through, and then they get at least some exposure, right, to what they're doing, all right? And then if they're bigger, then we'll say, hey, if you can get more beer to Dahl, we'll continue to order it, as it sells. And we always tell them, let people know you're there, because we know we're here, right? We know there's 137 different taps going. But we might not know about your brewery and your town as well as we should. So let people know you're there.
Are there any breweries that are in Iowa and they're kind of a holdout? You've wanted them to come for years and they've held out for just some reason?
Not really. We don't ask, right? We don't. I guess we don't know.
If they ask you, then the answer for the most part is probably going to be yes.
Yeah, and we don't. And if they don't come, we figure they have their reasons, right? We don't. Like I said, they either don't have the volume, or for them maybe it's. They don't want. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to be there. I don't know. We don't. We invite them. It's kind of like having a party. We'll invite you. We don't ask you why you didn't come. Right? You're like, we'd love to have you here. It'd be fun to have you. But if you don't show up, we're not going to call you and ask you why you didn't come. Right? And that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a nice. We are. The Iowa has a Brewers Guild that works on legislation and licensing and. Government affairs, right? We feel like we're the public side of that, right? Now you can come try the beers. They do all that work to get their beers made and out and about, make sure that Iowa allows them to be made. Come try them, right? Now that they've done all that work to, get them available, now we're kind of the place that you can come try them, and it costs you really nothing. Come take a look and ask some questions.
Do owners advocate for them? I mean, it's obviously a huge opportunity. There's a ton, 80 breweries.
Right.
So it's almost it's a little micro commerce. It's almost its own little market within the Iowa State Fair. Do you have brewery owners that show up that try to advocate for their beer and like walk through the tent and say, hey, have you tried the, yada yada beer? I hear it's pretty. Do you have people trying to advocate for their beers?
We do. So
I love that.
We actually send the brewers a ticket to the fair and then beer tickets. I think we still do that. Or we send tickets for sure. We send something like an invitation to them. Whoever says yes.
Call your people. And
right.
See
and we're like, we'll send you out. And so we hope they come and use their tickets. And then sometimes, which is pretty cool, like you said, the brewery will show up with their brewer, maybe they're the owner, or maybe it's a brewery owner. And they'll go buy a bunch of sample tickets and hand them out and say, hey, go try Pico Time. Go try, whatever they're pushing, right, to see. And so they'll give those little 5-ounce samples out and people then will go try the beer.
Oh, there are tickets they can give out to get samples.
Right. So they buy them. I mean, we give them some, but then they go buy some more. Sometimes they'll buy, 25 and just give them out to people and say, hey, go try it. We're from blah, blah, blah brewery. Go try my beer.
That's genius.
That kind of
so you'll have some beer owners that are walking through the fair.
Right.
Handing these out to people.
Right. Not a ton. More. I would think there'd be more, right? But there are some that kind of take advantage of that situation.
That's brilliant.
Right. Because and by the way, it's an opportunity for them to be on the other side of the bar.
Right.
Right. When you're at a beer festival, the brewer's on the inside handing out samples, right? Which is fun. I've done that before, right? That's fun. But it's also you can't get away from it, right? That's all you're doing. Now they can be on the other side drinking a beer and say, hey, you want to try? I'd love you to have you try my beer, right? And now kind of take a picture with them, right? Hang out with them, ask them all the questions. Because at a festival, they're too busy to. I mean, they'll answer questions for sure, but they're too busy. But at this moment, you catch them, you might have the ear for 5-10 minutes.
Who works the tent then? Is it all the brewers themselves who work the tent?
No, we don't ask the
breweries. Do
breweries.
You have your own employees?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So there's two sets. So breweries, there's some laws in Iowa where you can't do you can't do favors, right?
There's so many weird beer and liquor laws in Iowa. We've had Megan McKay in here to talk about you need like a PhD in law, or I don't even know if that's a thing. People are like, dude, you can't have a PhD in law. I don't know law, obviously, clearly.
Right.
But you need to have like a PhD or like 20 years of college to understand how to navigate our state's incredibly stupid beer and liquor law.
It makes it hard. We're a control state, right? So they want to control just about everything they can.
Not to mention, like, if you're buying liquor or beer here, like, it's way more expensive. And then if I go into Minnesota and, hypothetically, if I were to go into Minnesota and bring something over, it would be way cheaper, which is so dumb because the state is marking it up on us.
They do, right? It's part of what makes our state, right? Every state makes their money however they make their money, and Iowa makes the money on alcohol and beer and wine, right? Yeah. But, so that's part of how it works. But you're right. So it is difficult. So the brewers and the people that work for the breweries really can't serve the beer because that would be a favor to us. Right. So, but they can be on the other side.
So
if it's a festival, they can be back there because they're giving it away. Does that make sense? But once it's sold, they can't do it anymore. They can give it away as sampling, but they can't. Gosh. Once it's sold, they can't touch it again.
I'm glad we're doing that to prohibit whatever shenanigans or
terrible things could happen.
We're really saving humanity here by doing these incredibly stupid liquor and beer laws. Right. We're saving the planet.
Right. So we do have all the. So what we do is we have quite a few people we hire. You'll see them in like blue or red, different color shirts. And then we actually, when we first started in our first location, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation called us and said, hey, what are you doing to help pour beer? We said, I'm like 3 weeks into this. I have no idea what I'm doing yet, right? And they said, hey, we'll come pour your beer if we can get all the tips for our foundation.
Oh.
And we said, deal.
Oh, wait, people get tips?
But it goes to the charity.
Oh, so if you're tipping at the Iowa Beer Tent, it goes to a charity of choice.
It does.
Is it that way this year?
So it's been that way every year.
Brilliant.
And so,
I love that.
And what happened, what we found is when you come and pour beer for a day or 2 or 3, and you're a volunteer and it's going to charity, you're having a blast.
Yep, that's true.
It's not a job.
Interesting.
Right? And if you're going to volunteer at a craft beer stand, guess what? You have craft beer knowledge by default. Because you're not going to do it. I mean, you might do it for the charity, but you're going to do it because I love craft beer. So what we found is they love the Iowa State Fair. They love Iowa craft beer. They love sharing their enthusiasm for craft beer with other people coming to the Iowa State Fair. And the bonus, it's charity, right? So if I work for Principal or Wells Fargo or anything, I get a day or two a year to go work charity events. So they'll take that Tuesday.
Oh, brilliant.
Right?
Love it.
And say, hey, it's a charity event day. I'm going to come, work at the fair. And then we give them a ticket to the fair. We give them the T-shirt. By the way, you only get a volunteer T-shirt if you get a crew T-shirt. That's the only way you get one of those.
There's another little hot tip.
We give you a pin. The only way you get a pin is if you
Gotta
work.
volunteer.
And then we give you some beer tickets. And then we give you a certificate to Court Avenue Brewing Company, Americana, or Gilroy's to have lunch or a meal.
And it should be pointed out, this is your most of the year thing is Americana and Gilroy's. Those are your little babies. Right.
And the craft beer tent is busy during the summer, right? Because we're on Ragbri right now, right? And when we get back, we'll do the fair, and then we'll do Old Threshers, and we'll also do the Farm Progress Show.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we have a lot going on, but then we're done. Right. But it's a lot during those times, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and my partner, Steve Lynn, he's the mastermind behind those things. He's phenomenal.
And I should say, Americana, it has the best location, perhaps in Des Moines. It is just it's right on the sculpture park, and those enormous floor-to-ceiling glass windows. I don't know if there's a better location in this whole city than that. It is just such an iconic place. And of course, Americana, you have kind of the car culture in there, the black leather booths. You really figured this whole thing out. It is quite an atmosphere.
Well, thank you very much. And that used to be the original auto mile for Des Moines. So that was a Chrysler car dealership in the 30s. And that's what was built out.
Really quick before I let you go, I will credit you on the Iowa Craft Beer Tent, because you would naturally assume that it's this environment where you go by and there are guys with their shirts off standing on tables yelling, and it's never that way. And maybe it's the craft beer crowd, because they're like, I'm not here to get hammered and get crazy. I'm here to taste.
Right.
Like, I'm here to have an experience and really enjoy myself. And so it's almost a cross between a party culture but a coffee shop, if that makes sense. Like, people are having, it's kind of weird actually. People are having like really good, warm conversations. It's a lot of people. It's definitely a party.
Right.
But it never gets crazy or out of control. And I really appreciate that about I don't know if that's by design or if it's just the clientele you attract.
I think it's the craft beer drinker, but I'll tell you a couple of quick stories to kind of reinforce that. The Iowa Troopers, because it's a state fair, kind of are the police of the state fair. And the Iowa Fair also has their own police, but the troopers come in kind of droves for the Iowa State Fair. I think it was like year 3 or 4, and 2 troopers came in our old tent, came kind of walking through, and I could see them a little bewildered, and I grabbed a couple root beers, right, and walked over, and I said, hey guys, and they're like, what are you guys? Who are you guys? And you can see them looking around, and I said, Iowa Craft Beer Tent. And they're like, how long you been here? I'm like 3 or 4 years. I can't remember what it was. And they're like, amazing. And I go, why? He goes, I didn't know you were here. And
That's hilarious.
I go, well, we love having you guys here. Here's some root beers. I said, please, we love your presence. He goes, just so you know, we go where we're called. And he goes, so we've never been called here, so I didn't know you exist.
That's so funny.
And so I go, that's pretty cool. So they like us. And then you were saying, kind of like coffee shop. If you come into the tent, you'll see a lot of moms that like craft beer, but they'll have a stroller, right?
Yep.
So they'll come and they'll get 2 tickets. Right, and they'll meet their friends, and they'll
one
have
for their
beer,
kid and one for
and then
them.
they put the other one in their stroller, and they will stroll out, and they drink that beer as they go walk around, right?
That is
and then all of a
fantastic.
sudden you'll see them like an hour and a half later, loop back around, right? Right, meet their friends again, and I go, it's such a nice. I would say our average consumer has 2 or 3 beers. That's it, right?
It's like you got a craft beer just from a flavor profile.
Right.
It's a heavy thing.
Right.
It's not a light sip. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of flavor. And so yeah, like the average person, you can't take that much of that.
No,
it's
right.
a lot going on.
It kind of gives you what you're looking for, like a cup of coffee, right? Or it's like, I want something that probably relax me a little bit, right? That's why I think we have a drink or a beer, but something you don't want to like hinder your day, right? And so you want to be able to still see your friends, be with your family, and that kind of stuff. And it's great. And we do live music every night, right? From 5 to 9. So
I didn't know that either.
It's a long time we do live music. And people come by and go, this is the best live music at all. And we just have normally one man, Jimmy Buffett kind of, cover tunes, just doing their thing, right? And so, and they're all what I consider really good, because we always say to the performers, if you want to come back, you tell us. right? And then you get first dibs, right? So, and if you don't want to come back, that's okay too. Well, then we'll fill that slot, with somebody else. And guess what? 11 days, we fill 11 days after the state fair this year. Because I want to come back for the same day. It's almost like a rental property. I want to come back for the same day. And we're like, you got it, buddy.
Well, it's a really cool environment. The Iowa Craft Beer Tent, Scott Carlson, and of course also the owner of Americana and Gilroy's.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for building this. It is a really cool thing at the Iowa State Fair. And of course, thank you for coming on the Iowa Podcast.
Absolutely. I love people. Cheers.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.